At my birthday night party, my wife suggested we play Dare or Dare. She let my friend slip his hand under her skirt under the disguise of a game. When she came home, her key didn't work and my friend got a mail and started screaming. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who throws elaborate birthday parties. I'm talking about those Instagram nightmare events where people hire DJs, rent fog machines, and pretend they're celebrating another trip around the sun when really they're just fishing for validation from people they barely tolerate. Nah, that's not my speed. I wanted something low-key for my 32nd birthday. Just some buddies, a cooler full of beer, maybe some chicken wings from that spot on Fifth Avenue that does the garlic parmesan thing that makes you hate yourself in the best way possible. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would require me to wear anything other than jeans and my favorite flannel shirt that Rhea keeps threatening to accidentally donate to Goodwill. But here's the thing about planning a chill party when you're married to someone like Rhea. Chill isn't in her vocabulary. That woman operates on two settings, extra and extra extra. So while I was setting up some basic string lights in the backyard and arranging folding chairs like we were having a neighborhood barbecue, she was inside transforming our living room into what I can only describe as a nightclub designed by someone who watched too much MTV Cribs. She had colored LED lights pulsing to some Spotify playlist called Party Vibes 2025 or some equally generic nonsense. She'd moved furniture around to create a dance floor that nobody asked for, and she'd even set up a ring light in the corner because apparently we needed optimal selfie lighting. I should have known right then that my simple birthday wish to drink beer with my boys and maybe play some poker was about to get hijacked. By the time people started showing up around 7, I was already 3 Budweisers deep and working on my 4th, which is that sweet spot where you're buzzed enough to think everything's hilarious, but not so drunk that you're making decisions you'll regret. Or so I thought. My buddy Trey rolled in first, giving me that bro hug that guys do where you clasp hands and pull each other in for a one-armed embrace while patting backs like you're checking for weapons. Happy birthday, man. 32, still got all your hair. That's a win. He wasn't wrong. I'd been monitoring my hairline like a paranoid dictator watching his borders, and so far, genetics were being kind. My cousin Marco showed up next with his girlfriend, whose name I can never remember because Marco switches girlfriends more often than I change my car's oil. This one might have been Jessica? Jennifer? Started with a J, I'm pretty sure. She had that look like she'd rather be literally anywhere else, which, fair enough. Hanging with your boyfriend's older cousin on his birthday probably isn't anyone's idea of a hot Saturday night. More people trickled in. Coworkers, some college friends I barely kept in touch with except for the occasional happy birthday comment on Facebook, and Rhea's sister Vanessa, who always looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoe. The whole time, I kept glancing at Rhea, hoping maybe she'd come over, wrap her arms around me, and do that thing she used to do in the early days where she'd whisper something stupid and sweet in my ear that would make me grin like an idiot. But nope, she was glued to her phone, fingers flying across the screen, occasionally laughing at something that definitely wasn't happening in our living room. I tried not to let it bother me. This had become our new normal over the past 6 months. Her living in whatever digital universe existed behind that cracked iPhone screen, and me existing somewhere in her peripheral vision, like furniture she'd gotten used to and stopped really seeing. Around 8:30, after everyone had arrived and the small talk had reached that comfortable plateau where people were loosening up and the laughter was getting louder, Rhea finally decided to grace the party with her full attention. And let me tell you, when Rhea makes an entrance, she commits to it like she's walking the red carpet at the Oscars. She'd changed outfits, because of course she had, and was now wearing this little black dress that was more club downtown than husband's birthday party at home. But whatever, I'd stopped trying to understand her wardrobe choices around the same time she'd stopped asking my opinion on them. She strutted, and I mean full-on strutted, hips swaying, that confident smile plastered on her face, into the center of the living room, and suddenly everyone's attention shifted to her like she'd activated some kind of tractor beam. She came over to where I was standing by the makeshift bar, really just our kitchen counter covered with bottles and red Solo cups, leaned in, and kissed my cheek. But here's the thing. It wasn't one of those warm, genuine kisses that says, I love you, or even I like you. It was mechanical, performative, the kind of kiss a politician gives a baby during a campaign stop. Quick peck, pulled away before there was any real contact, and then that smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Having fun, birthday boy?" she asked, but she wasn't really asking. She was already scanning the room, making sure everyone was watching her, which they were, because that's what Rhea does. She commands attention like it's her job. "Yeah, it's great," I said, lifting my beer in a half-hearted toast. "Thanks for all this." I gestured vaguely at the LED lights and the rearranged furniture and the whole production she'd created. "Oh, we're just getting started," she said, and there was something in her voice. This edge of excitement mixed with something else I couldn't quite identify that should have set off alarm bells in my head. But I was 4 beers in and surrounded by friends, and it was my birthday. Damn it. So I pushed down that little voice of anxiety and decided to just roll with whatever was about to happen. Rhea clapped her hands together, the sharp sound cutting through the music and conversations. "Okay, everyone, gather round. We're going to play a game." A collective groan, mixed with some enthusiastic cheers, rose from the group. Party games are always a gamble. They're either going to be harmlessly fun or spectacularly awkward, and there's no way to know which until you're already committed. "What kind of game?" Marco asked, already looking skeptical, which was smart of him. Rhea's smile widened, and I swear to God, there was this glint in her eye that should have made me fake a heart attack right then and there. "Dare or dare," she announced, like she'd just revealed the cure for cancer. "Wait, don't you mean truth or dare?" Trey asked, confused. "Nope," Rhea said, popping the P sound like she was teaching kindergarten. "That's boring. We're doing dare or dare. Everyone picks a dare, and you have to do it. No backing out, no wimping out, no truth option. Just pure dares." Now, I want you to understand something about this moment. There's a reason that every horror movie starts with someone saying, "Hey, let's do this thing that's obviously a terrible idea." Because humans, despite thousands of years of evolution, still haven't developed the instinct to recognize when we're about to walk straight into disaster. And standing there in my living room, slightly drunk on cheap beer, surrounded by people who were already laughing and cheering at Rhea's suggestion, I had a choice. I could have been the boring husband who shut it down, who said, "Actually, let's just play poker like I originally planned," who prioritized common sense over entertainment. But I didn't, because somewhere in my beer-soaked brain, I thought maybe this would be fun. Maybe this would be one of those stories we'd laugh about later. "Remember that time at your birthday when Marco had to do that ridiculous dare?" Maybe, just maybe, Rhea had planned this as a way to actually engage with the party, with me, with our life together, instead of with her phone screen. "All right," I said, raising my beer bottle. "Let's do it. Dare or dare. What could possibly go wrong?" "Oh, pass me." Sweet, naive, slightly intoxicated past me. "If only you knew that you'd just agreed to the opening act of your marriage's demolition derby. If only you'd recognize that sometimes when your wife suggests a game with that particular smile on her face, she's not trying to add fun to the party. She's trying to blow up your entire life while everyone watches." But I didn't know that yet. So I smiled, I drank my beer, and I waited for the dares to begin, completely unaware that I was about to discover exactly how much damage 5 seconds can do to a decade of marriage. So we all settled into this game like a bunch of college kids who never grew up, which, let's be honest, is exactly what we were. Rhea grabbed an empty wine bottle from the counter, because apparently we were also adding spin the bottle elements to this disaster, and set it down on the coffee table that she'd shoved against the wall to make room for her imaginary dance floor. Everyone formed this loose circle on the floor and the couch, and I squeezed myself onto the armrest because my 32-year-old knees weren't about to forgive me for sitting cross-legged on hardwood for the next hour. The first spin landed on Trey, and Rhea, acting as the self-appointed game master of this circus, tapped her chin like she was contemplating something really profound, like world peace or the meaning of life, when really she was just trying to figure out how to embarrass my best friend since high school. "Okay, Trey," she said, dragging out his name like a game show host about to reveal a prize. "I dare you to sing Barbie Girl in the worst British accent you can manage. Full performance. I want hand gestures. I want commitment. I want to feel like I'm watching a really terrible West End production." Trey, to his credit, didn't even hesitate. He jumped up, put his hand on his hip, and launched into this absolutely horrific rendition of "I'm a Barbie Girl in a Barbie World" that sounded less like a British accent and more like someone having a stroke while impersonating the Queen. He was doing these ridiculous poses, flipping his imaginary hair, and by the time he got to life in plastic, it's fantastic, everyone was dying laughing. Like, genuinely losing it. Marco was wiping tears from his eyes. Vanessa was actually smiling for once in her perpetually judgmental life, and even I had to admit it was pretty damn funny. This was the kind of harmless, stupid fun I'd been hoping for. Everyone embarrassing themselves equally, no hard feelings, just good memories, and maybe some blackmail footage for future birthdays. The bottle spun again, landed on Marco, and Ria gave him a dare to do 10 push-ups right there in the middle of the living room while reciting the alphabet backwards. He made it to about the letter S before his arms gave out and he face-planted onto our area rug, which sent another wave of laughter through the room. His girlfriend, whose name I still couldn't remember, helped him up, and he was grinning like an idiot, flexing his arms like he'd just won Mr. Olympia instead of failing at basic exercise. See, this was fine. This was fun. This was exactly the kind of stupid adult entertainment that made you forget about your mortgage and your boring office job and the fact that your marriage had become more roommate situation than romantic partnership. I was actually starting to relax, thinking maybe Ria had actually planned something cool for once. Maybe this was her way of trying to inject some life back into our relationship, into our social circle, into the general monotony that had become our existence. The bottle spun again. It went around a few more times. Somebody had to eat a spoonful of hot sauce. Someone else had to call their mom and sing happy birthday, even though it wasn't her birthday. Standard party dare stuff that would be slightly embarrassing in the moment and hilarious in retrospect. I was on my 5th beer now, that perfect level of drunk where everything seems like a good idea and consequences are just theoretical concepts that happen to other people. Then the bottle landed on Trey again. And this is where everything went from fun party game to what the actual hell is happening in my living room right now. Ria leaned forward, and I noticed this change in her expression, like she'd been waiting for this moment, planning for it, and now the opportunity had finally arrived. She had this look in her eyes that I'd seen before, usually right before she did something impulsive that I'd have to deal with the consequences of later. But I was too buzzed and too committed to the vibe of the party to really register what was about to happen. Trey, she said, and her voice had this edge to it now, this sharpness that cut through the music and the chatter. The room didn't go quiet immediately, but there was this subtle shift in energy, like everyone's subconscious was picking up on something their conscious minds hadn't processed yet. I've got a really good dare for you. Oh God, Trey said, laughing nervously. I don't like that tone. That's the tone my ex-girlfriend used right before she told me we needed to talk. Don't be dramatic, Ria said, waving her hand dismissively. She was smiling, but it wasn't her normal smile. It was something else, something calculated and sharp and dangerous. It's simple, really. I dare you to slip your hand under my skirt for 5 seconds. I want you to understand that time actually stopped in that moment. Like, I'm not being dramatic or exaggerating for effect. The actual fabric of reality seemed to pause, like someone had hit the universal pause button and we were all frozen in this moment of absolute what the fuck. The music kept playing, some Calvin Harris song was pumping through the Bluetooth speaker, but nobody heard it. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain literally couldn't process what had just been said, so it defaulted to this nervous, automatic response that humans do when they're confronted with something so absurd that their cognitive functions just temporarily shut down. It was that kind of laugh that comes out when you're waiting for someone to yell, "Gotcha," or "just kidding," or literally anything that would indicate that what you just heard wasn't actually what was said. But she didn't say she was kidding. She just sat there, looking at Trey with this expectant expression, like she'd just dared him to do a shot of tequila instead of proposing that he sexually touch my wife in my living room on my birthday while I watched. Wait, what? Trey said, and I could see the color draining from his face. He looked at me, then at Ria, then back at me, like he was desperately trying to find the hidden camera or the punchline or any indication that this was some kind of elaborate joke that he wasn't getting. You heard me, Ria said, and she adjusted her position on the couch, crossing her legs in a way that made her dress ride up slightly. 5 seconds. That's the dare. You gonna chicken out? The room was still frozen. Marco's mouth was literally hanging open. Vanessa looked like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. Marco's maybe Jessica girlfriend had her hand over her mouth. Someone's drink was hovering halfway to their lips, suspended in midair like a paused video. Ria, I said, and my voice sounded weird, distant and hollow, like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. Come on, that's not. It's just a game. She cut me off, not even looking at me. Her eyes were locked on Trey, challenging him. What? Are you guys too uptight for a real dare? I thought we were all adults here. And here's the thing that really messed with my head. She said it so casually, like she was suggesting we order pizza or change the music. Like this was a completely normal, reasonable thing to propose. Like the sanctity of our marriage and basic human decency were just arbitrary rules that didn't apply when you were playing party games. I was still waiting for someone to laugh, to break the tension, to acknowledge that this had gone too far and we needed to reset back to the harmless fun we'd been having 5 minutes ago. But nobody did. Everyone was looking at Trey, waiting to see what he would do. And then, I swear to God, I still have nightmares about this moment. Trey looked at me, and I could see him doing this mental calculation. I could literally watch his brain weighing the options, refuse and look like a coward in front of everyone, or accept, and what? Prove he was game for anything? Show that he didn't take life too seriously? I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but I saw the moment he made his decision, and my stomach dropped like I was on a roller coaster that had just crested the peak and was about to plummet. I mean, Trey said slowly, if it's just for 5 seconds, and it's just a game. No, 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 no. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. But it was happening. Trey was actually moving toward Ria. Ria was actually smiling. No, smirking, like she'd just won something. And I was sitting there, frozen on the armrest of my own couch, in my own house, at my own birthday party, watching my wife of 7 years and my best friend since 11th grade collaborate on what was quite possibly the most disrespectful moment of my entire life. His hand moved. She didn't stop him. 5 seconds felt like 5 hours. I heard someone gasp. Might have been Vanessa. Might have been me. I honestly couldn't tell because all the blood in my body had rushed to my head and everything sounded like I was underwater. When Trey pulled his hand back, someone actually clapped. One person. I don't even know who it was because my vision had tunneled and all I could see was my wife's face, and she was smiling. Not embarrassed, not apologetic, not uncomfortable, smiling. Like this had been the plan all along. Like she'd just successfully pulled off some kind of performance art piece and was waiting for the applause. See, she said, looking around the room. It's just a game. Everyone relax. But nobody was relaxing. Marco was staring at his shoes. Vanessa was looking at me with something that might have been pity, which somehow made it worse. Trey was wiping his hand on his jeans like he could erase what had just happened through friction and denial. And me? I was smiling. Not because I was happy or okay or fine with what had just happened. I was smiling because my brain had completely short-circuited and defaulted to this weird autopilot mode where I was still playing the role of chill birthday host. Even though internally I was screaming so loud that dogs in the next county probably heard it. I was smiling like a robot whose programming had glitched but was still trying to complete its primary function. I was smiling like a man who had just watched his marriage drive off a cliff in real time but hadn't quite processed the crash yet. The party continued, somehow. People pretended to move on. But everything had changed, and everyone knew it. The thing about watching your life implode in front of a live studio audience is that you can't just hit pause and process what the hell just happened. The party kept going like some kind of cursed merry-go-round that nobody knew how to stop. The music was still playing, some top 40 garbage that suddenly felt like it was mocking me with its upbeat tempo. People were still drinking, still talking, but now there was this weird energy in the room, like everyone was pretending really hard that they hadn't just witnessed what they'd definitely witnessed. I kept that smile plastered on my face like it was a mask I couldn't remove. You know that feeling when you're at the dentist and they tell you to keep your mouth open, and after a while your jaw starts aching, but you can't stop because that's what you're supposed to do? That's what my face felt like. Every muscle was screaming at me to let the expression drop, to show what I was actually feeling, but I couldn't. Because if I stopped smiling, I'd have to acknowledge what had just happened, and if I acknowledged it, I'd have to do something about it. And I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do when your wife just let another man's hand go where only your hand should go. Ria acted like nothing had happened. Actually, That's not quite right. She acted like something totally normal and hilarious had happened, like we'd all just watched a funny YouTube video instead of the live destruction of my dignity. She was laughing, refilling her wine glass, suggesting we keep playing the game. Keep playing. Like we hadn't just crossed a line so far that the line was now a tiny dot on the horizon behind us. Come on, let's keep it going, she said, reaching for the wine bottle to spin it again. Who's next? Actually, Marco said, standing up so fast he nearly knocked over his beer. I think we're gonna head out. Early morning tomorrow, you know how it is. It was 9:30 on a Saturday night. His girlfriend looked relieved, grabbing her purse like it was a life preserver, and she was drowning in awkwardness. That started the exodus. One by one, people invented reasons to leave. Someone remembered they had to feed their cat. Another person suddenly had a splitting headache. Vanessa didn't even bother with an excuse. She just looked at me with this expression that was part pity, part disgust, like I was an injured animal she wanted to help but couldn't bring herself to touch. And then she left. Within 20 minutes, my birthday party had cleared out faster than a building during a fire drill. Trey was one of the last to leave, and that was its own special kind of torture. He approached me with this sheepish expression, like a dog that knows it did something wrong but isn't entirely sure what. Hey man, I'm sorry if that was. Don't, I said, still smiling, because apparently my face was stuck now. It's cool. Just a game, right? He nodded, but we both knew he was lying and I was lying, and this whole situation was built on lies now. He patted my shoulder, which felt like a violation all its own, considering where that hand had been, and mumbled something about calling me later, which we both knew he wouldn't do. Then it was just me and Rhea in our living room that suddenly felt too big and too small at the same time. The LED lights were still pulsing their stupid colors. Red Solo cups were scattered everywhere like casualties of war. There was a chip crushed into the carpet that I'd have to deal with later, but honestly, a crushed chip felt like the least of my problems right now. Rhea was on her phone again, typing away, probably posting some carefully curated photo from earlier in the night with a caption like, "Best birthday party ever. Hashtag blessed, hashtag love, hashtag good times." Or some other bullshit that would make everyone who'd already left think they'd imagined what had actually happened. That was fun, she said, not looking up from her screen. Everyone seemed to have a good time. I stared at her. Actually stared, waiting for her to acknowledge the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the hand that had been under her skirt in the room. But she just kept scrolling, double-tapping, living in her digital fantasy world where consequences didn't exist and marriages were just props for Instagram content. Rhea, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected, which surprised me. What the hell was that? What was what? She finally looked up, and I swear to God, she looked genuinely confused, like I was asking her about quantum physics instead of about the most disrespectful thing that had ever happened in our relationship. The dare. The game. Trey. His hand. Your skirt. Do I need to keep going, or are you getting the picture? She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them, like I was being unreasonable. Oh my God, don't be so dramatic. It was just a game. Everyone was having fun. Fun. I felt something crack inside my chest, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. You think that was fun? Watching my wife let my best friend touch her in front of everyone. He barely touched me, she said, waving her hand dismissively. It was 5 seconds. You're acting like we had sex on the coffee table. The fact that she was using "we had sex on the coffee table" as her comparison point for behavior that would have been inappropriate told me everything I needed to know about how far apart we'd drifted. When did we get here? When did the woman I married, the one who used to get embarrassed if I held her hand too long in public, turn into someone who thought this kind of stunt was acceptable party entertainment? It's not about how long it was, I said, trying to keep my voice level even though I wanted to scream. It's about respect. It's about boundaries. It's about the fact that you thought it was okay to do that, in front of everyone, on my birthday. There it is, she said, and there was this edge of triumph in her voice, like she'd been waiting for me to say something specific so she could pounce on it. This is really about your ego, isn't it? Your pride got hurt because everyone saw it. If I'd done the same thing in private, you wouldn't care. The audacity of that statement actually made me laugh. A real laugh this time, not the broken robot laugh from earlier. Are you serious right now? You think the problem is that people saw it? Rhea, The problem is that it happened at all. You're being a child, she said, standing up and grabbing her purse. I need some air. You're suffocating me with this jealous husband routine. Jealous. I was following her now as she headed toward the door. Setting basic boundaries in a marriage isn't jealousy. It's called having standards. She spun around, and for a second I saw something flash in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or guilt, or possibly just annoyance that I wasn't letting this go as easily as she'd hoped. You know what your problem is? You're boring. You want everything to be safe and predictable and comfortable, and God forbid anyone tries to have a little fun or be spontaneous. Spontaneous? The word tasted bitter coming out of my mouth. Is that what we're calling it? Because I'd call it disrespectful, I'd call it inappropriate, I'd call it a dozen other things, but spontaneous isn't one of them. I'm staying at my sister's tonight, she announced, grabbing her keys from the hook by the door. I need space from your negativity. My negativity. My negativity. I'd just watched my wife participate in what was essentially public foreplay with my best friend, and my completely reasonable reaction to that was being characterized as negativity. This was gaslighting at an Olympic level. Fine, I said, and I meant it. Take all the space you need. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames on the wall. One of them, a photo from our wedding day, both of us smiling like we'd just won the lottery, fell face down on the console table. I didn't pick it up. I stood there in my living room surrounded by the debris of my birthday party and my marriage. And that's when the smile finally dropped. My face relaxed, my jaw unclenched, and I felt the full weight of what had happened settle onto my shoulders like a wet blanket made of pure humiliation and rage. But underneath all of that, there was something else growing, something cold and calculating and methodical. Because here's what Rhea didn't understand about me, what she'd forgotten somewhere along the way while she was busy living her best life on social media and treating our marriage like it was just another game to play. I might be boring, I might be predictable, I might be all the things she accused me of being. But I was also patient, and I was thorough, and when I decided to do something, I committed to it completely. She'd made her move in this game she wanted to play. She'd shown me exactly how much our marriage meant to her, exactly how much respect she had for me, exactly what kind of person she'd become when she thought she could get away with it. Now it was my turn. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, started making a list. Change the locks was item number 1. It felt petty even as I typed it, but you know what? Sometimes petty is exactly what the situation calls for. Sometimes the high road is overrated, and the low road has better scenery anyway. I looked at that fallen picture frame, still face down on the table, and I smiled again. But this smile was different from the broken one I'd been wearing all night. This smile was sharp. This smile had teeth. This smile was the beginning of consequences. Just a game, I said to the empty room, to the ghost of the party, to the memory of my wife's smirk as she'd crossed that line. Okay, sweetheart, let's play. Sunday morning hit me like a hangover, except I wasn't hungover. I was just existing in that special kind of clarity that comes after you've witnessed your marriage spontaneously combust, and you're now sifting through the ashes trying to figure out what the hell to do with them. I woke up on the couch because I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed, which still smelled like her perfume and broken promises. My neck was stiff, my back was screaming at me, and there was a red Solo cup stuck to my forearm that I didn't remember falling asleep with. Happy birthday to me, part 2, The Reckoning. My phone had blown up overnight. 17 text messages, most of them from people at the party doing that thing where they pretend to check in on you, but really they're just fishing for drama they can discuss with other people later. Hey man, you good? Translation: please confirm that what I saw actually happened so I can tell everyone about it. I ignored all of them except one from my brother Jake, who lived 3 states away and hadn't been at the party. Thank God. Mom says you had a party. How'd it go? I typed back. Let's just say I'm considering becoming a monk. 3 dots appeared immediately. That bad? Worse. Tell you later. I hauled myself off the couch and surveyed the damage. My living room looked like a crime scene, if the crime was bad decisions and worse judgment. I started cleaning on autopilot, throwing away cups, wiping down surfaces, finding that crushed chip in the carpet, and scrubbing at it like if I could just get this one stain out. Maybe everything else would somehow fix itself too. Spoiler alert, it didn't work that way. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Rhea. Not an apology, Not an acknowledgement of what had happened, just, "Hey babe, I'm staying at Vanessa's tonight too. Need a break. Don't wait up. Need a break." Like she was the one who'd been wronged here. Like she was the victim in this situation. Like I was some kind of oppressive force she needed space from. Instead of the husband whose birthday she'd turned into a public humiliation ritual. I stared at that text for a solid 5 minutes, reading it over and over, waiting for the anger to spike. But instead I just felt this cold, calm determination settle over me like snow. She wanted a break? The whole deal. Woman trouble? He asked, already getting to work on the front door. Is it that obvious? Brother, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I can spot a revenge lock change from a mile away. Usually it's the women calling me, though. You're the first guy this month. Well, I'm a trailblazer, I said, watching him remove the old lock mechanism with practiced efficiency. He worked in silence for a while, just the sound of his tools and the occasional grunt of effort. After about 45 minutes, he'd replaced all 3 locks with brand new ones, shiny and silver, and completely foreign to the keys currently sitting in Ria's purse at her sister's house. You want me to leave the old locks with you? Raymond asked as he packed up his tools. Some people like to keep them. Evidence for the lawyers, usually. Lawyers, I repeated, tasting the word. I hadn't really thought that far ahead yet, but hearing him say it made something crystallize in my mind. Yeah, lawyers. This was heading that direction, wasn't it? Just a hunch, Raymond said, handing me 3 new sets of keys. You seem like a guy who's making permanent decisions, not temporary ones. He wasn't wrong. I paid him cash, $280 to buy myself some peace of mind and a whole lot of petty satisfaction, and he drove away, leaving me standing in my doorway with new keys and a new sense of purpose. I spent the rest of Sunday and most of Monday in a weird productive haze, like I was preparing for something without fully knowing what it was yet. I cleaned the house top to bottom. I organized paperwork. I pulled out our marriage certificate and looked at it. Really looked at it, trying to remember the person I'd been when I signed that thing. Young, optimistic, convinced that love was enough to overcome anything. What a naive idiot. Monday afternoon, I was sitting at my home office desk. I'd been working remote since the pandemic and never went back to the office full-time, when my phone buzzed with another text from Ria. Coming home tonight. Need to grab some things. Should be there around 7. No, can I come by? No. Is that okay? Just a statement of fact, like she still had unlimited access to come and go as she pleased. I checked the time, 4:47 p.m. That gave me just over 2 hours to prepare for what was about to be a very interesting conversation. I didn't respond to her text, just left it on read, which I knew would annoy her because she was one of those people who needed immediate responses to everything, like the world would stop spinning if someone didn't acknowledge her messages within 30 seconds. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 7:15. Finally, around 7:23, I heard it, the sound of a key scraping against the front door lock, trying to find purchase, failing. The scraping got more aggressive, more frustrated. Then came the jiggling, that universal sound of someone trying to force a key into a lock that it no longer belongs to. I stayed where I was, sitting in the living room with a fresh cup of coffee, decaf, because I wasn't a monster, I just wanted to be petty, not unable to sleep, and waited. The jiggling stopped. Then came the knocking. Soft at first, almost polite. Hello? The door's stuck or something. I took a sip of my coffee. The knocking got louder. Seriously, the lock is broken. Can you open the door? Another sip. I was really savoring this coffee. Maybe the best coffee I'd ever had, actually. Then came the pounding, aggressive now, the sound of someone who'd just realized that the lock wasn't broken, it was changed. Are you kidding me right now? Did you change the locks? I stood up, walked to the door, and spoke through it in the calmest voice I could manage. Yeah, I changed them. Part of the house renovation you didn't approve. What house renovation? Open this door right now. Can't do that, sweetheart. See, you said you needed space, so I'm giving you space. All the space you want, actually. It's very spacious out there on the porch. This is MY house too. Her voice was reaching that high-pitched frequency that dogs could probably hear in the next county. Actually, I said, leaning against the door, enjoying this way more than I probably should have. If we're being technical about it, it's my house. Your name isn't on the deed, remember? You never got around to being added. Silence. Then, you're being insane. This is crazy. You can't lock me out of my own home. I just did, though. So clearly I can. And it's not your home. That's kind of my whole point here. More pounding, loud enough that I worried about the neighbors. Except our nearest neighbor was Mrs. Chun, who was like 87 and deaf as a post. So we were probably fine. I need my things. My clothes, my makeup, my laptop. Everything I own is in there. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to play Wandering Hands with Trey at my birthday party. Huh? I could hear her breathing hard through the door, could imagine her face getting red the way it did when she was really angry. That vein in her forehead popping out like it was trying to escape. Let me in right now, or I'm calling the cops. Go ahead, I said cheerfully. Tell them your husband locked you out of his house after you publicly humiliated him. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Maybe they'll even want to see the security footage from the backyard Ring camera. You remember that camera, right? The one that has a perfect view of the living room window. Another silence, longer this time. I could practically hear her brain recalculating, reassessing, trying to figure out her next move. You're recording this? Her voice had changed now, less angry, more careful. I'm not recording anything right now. But the camera definitely caught some interesting party moments. Real spontaneous stuff, very authentic content. The silence that followed my little revelation about the Ring camera was absolutely delicious. I could hear Ria's breathing through the door, and I imagined her standing there doing that thing she did when she was trying to process information that didn't fit her narrative, biting her bottom lip, eyes darting around like the answer to her problems was written somewhere in the air. The Ring camera had been my idea 6 months ago after our neighbor 2 houses down got their packages stolen. Ria had complained about the cost, said it was unnecessary, that I was being paranoid again. Funny how paranoia looks a lot like preparation when things go sideways. You wouldn't, she finally said, but her voice had lost that aggressive edge. Now she sounded uncertain, which was a nice change from her usual bulletproof confidence. Wouldn't what? Keep security footage from my own house. Pretty sure that's not illegal, Ria. In fact, I think it's called being a responsible homeowner. You're bluffing. The camera points at the backyard. Yeah, and the backyard has a big, beautiful window that looks directly into the living room. You know, the living room where we had the party, where you decided to audition for the Real Housewives of Terrible Decisions. More silence. I was winning, and we both knew it. The balance of power in our relationship had always been weird. She was the bold one, the outgoing one, the one who made demands and expected them to be met. I was the steady one, the reliable one, the one who went along to keep the peace. But going along to keep the peace only works if there's peace to keep, and she'd napalmed that concept straight to hell on Saturday night. I want to see it, she said finally. The footage. I don't believe you. Don't really care what you believe, honestly. But I'll tell you what, you've got 2 options here. Option 1. You can stand on that porch all night making a scene that'll give Mrs. Chun something to talk about at her next book club, assuming she can hear you. Option 2. You can go back to Vanessa's, think about your choices, and we can have a conversation about this like adults. Your call. I heard her kick the door, not hard enough to damage it, but hard enough to make her point. This isn't over. Oh, I know it's not. It's barely started, sweetheart. Her footsteps retreated down the porch stairs, angry stomps that got quieter until I heard her car door slam and her engine start. I waited until I heard her peel out of the driveway, really laying on that gas pedal, probably left skid marks, before I moved away from the door. My coffee had gone cold, but I drank it anyway, staring at my laptop on the kitchen counter. The Ring camera footage was backed up to the cloud automatically, password protected, and absolutely real. I pulled it up on my laptop, scrubbing through Saturday night's timeline until I found the relevant section. There it was, crystal clear through that living room window. Ria making her dare, Trey's hand moving. The whole sordid scene captured in glorious 1080p HD. I sat there watching it 3 times, and each time I felt something different. First time, disbelief, like surely this wasn't my life, surely this was someone else's disaster. Second time, anger, hot and sharp, making my jaw clench. Third time, cold calculation, because anger without action is just noise, and I was done making noise. Trey, my supposed best friend since we were 16, sitting in geometry class making jokes about Mr. Peterson's toupee. We'd gone to the same college, been in each other's weddings, had done that whole brotherhood thing that guys do when they're too emotionally stunted to just say, I care about you. And he'd thrown all of that away for 5 seconds under my wife's skirt. The math on that was insulting. Our entire friendship apparently had less value than a dare at a party game. I opened my email and created a new message. The to field got Trey's email address. The subject line, memory lane. The body of the email was simple. Hey man, thought you might want a souvenir from Saturday night. Check out the attachment. Might want to watch it with the volume down if you're at work. Or with your wife. Or with anybody, actually. P.S. The cloud has infinite storage, just FYI. I attached a clip from the Ring footage, just the relevant 30 seconds, edited down to capture the dare and the follow-through. My editing skills weren't great, but they didn't need to be. The footage spoke for itself. My cursor hovered over the send button for about 10 seconds. This was a point of no return type of moment. Once I sent this, I was declaring war, burning bridges, salting the earth. But here's the thing. Trey had already burned the bridge. I was just making sure he understood that I'd noticed the flames. I clicked send. The email whooshed off into the digital void, and I closed my laptop, feeling weirdly calm. Not happy, exactly, but satisfied in the way you feel when you've finally done something you should have done a long time ago, like cleaning out your garage or going to the dentist. My phone rang about 8 minutes later. Trey. I watched it ring, his contact photo. A picture from a fishing trip we'd taken last summer, both of us holding beers and grinning like idiots, flashing on my screen. I declined the call. He called back immediately. Declined again. Then came the texts, rapid fire like he was trying to speed run through all 5 stages of grief at once. Dude, what the hell? Why did you send that? This isn't funny. Call me back now. I'm serious, man, we need to talk. I typed one response. Funny. That's exactly what I thought on Saturday night. Guess we're both disappointed. My phone rang again. I turned it face down on the counter and went to make myself a real dinner. Not just the chips and beer that had been sustaining me since the party. I made pasta, the kind from scratch that takes actual effort, because spite is an excellent motivator and also because I was tired of eating garbage. While the water was boiling, my phone kept buzzing against the counter like an angry bee. I ignored it, focusing instead on chopping garlic, measuring out olive oil, grating Parmesan that I'd bought from the fancy grocery store that Rhea always said was too expensive. Well, guess what? It was my house, my money, and my expensive-ass cheese now. Somewhere around the time I was tossing the pasta with the sauce, the buzzing stopped. I checked my phone and found 23 missed calls and 47 text messages. The texts had evolved from demanding to pleading to angry to desperate. My favorite was, my wife saw it. She's asking questions. Please delete it. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat down with my plate of pasta and opened my laptop again. The Ring footage was safely backed up in 3 different places now. The Ring cloud, my personal Google Drive, and an external hard drive I dug out of my desk drawer. Some people collect stamps or coins. I was apparently collecting evidence of my marriage's demise. Different hobbies for different folks. Around 9 p.m., my email pinged with a new message from Trey. The subject line was just, please. I opened it against my better judgment. It was long, rambling, full of typos that suggested he was either drunk or typing with shaking hands. The gist was, it was a mistake. He was sorry. He never meant to hurt me. Rhea had pressured him. He'd been drunk. Please, please, please delete the footage because his wife was threatening to leave and his boss somehow found out, and now his job was in jeopardy. That last part caught my attention. His boss found out. That meant he'd opened my email at work, which was exactly what I'd hoped for but hadn't actually expected. I'd figured he'd be smart enough to wait until he got home, but apparently panic makes people stupid. Or maybe he was already stupid and I'd just been too loyal to notice for the past 16 years. I crafted my response carefully, redrafting it 3 times before I got the tone right. Trey, thanks for your email. A few thoughts. 1. You should have thought about consequences before playing hands-on Jenga with another man's wife. 2. Your wife deserves to know the truth. 3. Your boss clearly has good judgment. 4. The footage stays exactly where it is. 5. Lose my number. Don't email, don't text, don't send a carrier pigeon. We're done. Your former friend. Send. I finished my pasta, which was genuinely delicious. The expensive cheese was absolutely worth it. And then did something I hadn't done in months. I slept soundly. No tossing, no turning, no waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if I'd overreacted or been too harsh. I slept like a man who'd finally stopped carrying something heavy and didn't miss the weight at all. Tuesday morning brought new developments. My phone had mercifully stayed quiet overnight. Apparently, Trey had finally gotten the message, literally and figuratively. But Ria was a different story. She'd sent me 17 texts between midnight and 6 a.m., an escalating series of demands, threats, and eventually what might have been attempts at manipulation disguised as vulnerability. We need to talk about this like adults. You can't just lock me out forever. I have rights. This is abuse. I'll get a lawyer. Please, can we just talk? I miss you. I miss home. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Just let me come get my things at least. That last one gave me an idea. I typed back, fine. You can come get your things. Thursday at 2 p.m. You have 1 hour. I'll be here to supervise. Don't be late. Her response came within seconds. Thank you. I knew you'd be reasonable. Reasonable. That was one word for it. I had other words in mind, but reasonable would do for now. Because I was about to show her exactly what kind of reasonable I could be when someone mistook my patience for weakness. Thursday was 2 days away. That gave me plenty of time to prepare. I opened my laptop and started a new document, titling it, Inventory, Ria's Belongings. If she wanted her things, she'd get her things. Every single item that belonged to her, carefully documented, photographed, and ready for removal. Nothing of mine would leave with her. Not my dignity, not my self-respect, and definitely not my expensive cheese. Thursday arrived with the kind of weather that felt almost prophetic, overcast, humid, the kind of day where the air feels thick enough to chew. I'd spent Tuesday and Wednesday in a productive rage spiral, documenting every single item in the house that belonged to Ria. Turns out when you've been married for 7 years, your stuff gets mixed together like some kind of domestic smoothie, and separating it requires the organizational skills of a military logistics officer and the pettiness of a reality TV villain. Lucky for me, I had both in spades right now. I'd created a spreadsheet, color-coded, cross-referenced, with photos. Her clothes, 17 garbage bags, neatly packed and labeled by category. Work clothes, casual wear, shoes, accessories, that weird collection of scarves she'd bought and never worn. Her toiletries, 3 boxes, organized by type. Her books, her decorative pillows that I'd always hated, her essential oil diffuser that made the house smell like a hippie yoga studio, her collection of wine glasses with stupid inspirational quotes on them. Boss babe, wine o'clock, slay all day. All of it packed up and ready to go. The living room looked like a warehouse. I'd arranged everything in neat rows, creating aisles between the bags and boxes like I was running some kind of divorce department store. Each item had a little sticky note with its corresponding spreadsheet number. Was this excessive? Absolutely. Was I enjoying it? More than I'd enjoyed anything in months. At 1:45 p.m., I made myself a sandwich, turkey, Swiss, little bit of mustard, because I was going to need my energy for whatever was about to happen. I ate it standing at the kitchen counter, watching the driveway through the window, waiting for the inevitable. Ria's car pulled up at exactly 2:03 p.m., which meant she was late, but not fashionably late, just regular late, which was her standard operating procedure. She'd never been on time for anything in her life. Not our wedding, not job interviews, not even her own mother's birthday dinners. It was like she believed time was a suggestion rather than a concrete thing that other people operated on. She got out of the car, and I noticed she'd dressed for this occasion. Full makeup, hair done, wearing that blue dress she knew I liked, or used to like, back when I cared about things like what she wore. She was trying to look appealing, vulnerable, like if she just looked pretty enough I'd forget about what had happened and let her waltz back into the house and our marriage like nothing had changed. I opened the door before she could knock, keeping the security chain on. Right on time, I said, even though she wasn't. Well, almost. Can I come in? She asked, and her voice had that careful, measured quality that people use when they're trying really hard to seem reasonable. We should talk about this. You've got 1 hour to collect your belongings. The clock starts now. I unlatched the chain and swung the door open wide, revealing the living room behind me. The rows of bags, the stacks of boxes, the meticulously organized chaos of our separation. Her mouth actually fell open. Like, cartoon character, jaw-dropping, full surprised Pikachu face open. What is all this? These are your things. I took the liberty of packing them for you, since you were staying at Vanessa's and I had some free time. You know me, always efficient. I stepped aside, gesturing like a game show host revealing a prize. Everything's labeled and organized. I even made a spreadsheet if you want to verify anything. She walked in slowly, looking around like she'd just entered some kind of alternate dimension. You packed all my stuff? Every last item. Well, except for the things that were gifts from me. Those stayed. My grandfather's money bought them, so technically they're mine. But everything else? All yours. Ready to go. She turned to look at me, and I could see her trying to figure out what play to make here. The pretty dress wasn't working, so she'd need a new strategy. This is insane. You know that, right? This is completely unhinged behavior. Is it? I thought I was being helpful. You wanted your things, I packed your things. I even used the good garbage bags, not the cheap ones that rip. You're welcome, by the way. We need to talk, she said, abandoning the bags and walking toward me with her hands out, like she was approaching a wild animal. Really talk. About what happened, about us, about how you let another man's hand up your skirt at my birthday party? I interrupted, keeping my voice pleasant, almost cheerful. Yeah, I'm good on that conversation, actually. Said everything I needed to say when I changed the locks. It was a stupid game. I already apologized. Her voice was rising now, that careful control starting to crack. Actually, you didn't apologize. You told me I was being dramatic, then you left. That's not an apology, that's a dismissal. But hey, who's keeping track? I gestured to the bags again. Clock's ticking. 53 minutes left. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time, or maybe like she was realizing that the person she'd been married to for 7 years wasn't going to roll over and forgive this particular transgression. I don't understand what's happening right now. This isn't you. You don't do things like this. You're right, I said, and I meant it. The old me didn't do things like this. The old me would have swallowed it, made excuses for you, convinced myself that it wasn't that bad, that I was overreacting, that I should be grateful you came home at all. But that guy? He died on Saturday night. This is the new me, and the new me has significantly less tolerance for disrespect. So what? You're just going to throw away 7 years of marriage over one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, and it echoed in the emptiness of the living room. Ria, this wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidental. You didn't accidentally dare Trey to touch you. You didn't accidentally smile while he did it. You didn't accidentally dismiss my feelings afterward. Those were all choices. Deliberate, conscious choices. And now I'm making mine. Her eyes were getting shiny now, tears forming, and I knew this phase of the performance. The crying, the vulnerability, the look what you're doing to me act. I'd seen it before, usually when she wanted something or when she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't have been doing. Please, she said, and her voice cracked perfectly like she'd rehearsed it. Please don't do this. I love you. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can. Counseling. The word came out sharper than I intended. You want to sit in some therapist's office and explain to a third party why you thought it was appropriate to turn our marriage into performance art? You want to pay someone $200 an hour to tell you what common sense should have told you for free? Hard pass. She was full-on crying now, mascara starting to run. The waterproof stuff she usually wore was apparently not in play today. You're being cruel. This isn't fair. Fair. I felt something hot flare in my chest. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you humiliated me in front of everyone I care about? Was it fair when you gaslit me afterward, told me I was being dramatic for having a completely normal reaction to watching my wife get felled up by my best friend? Was it fair when you left and made me the bad guy for being upset? I said I was sorry, she shouted, dropping the vulnerable act and switching to anger, because apparently we were speed running through emotional manipulation tactics. No, you didn't. You literally never said those words. You said, don't be dramatic. You said it was just a game. You said you're being a child, but you never once said, I'm sorry. I crossed a line. I disrespected you and our marriage. Not once. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. Because I was right, and she knew it. And she was realizing that her usual tactics weren't going to work this time. Get your stuff, I said, my voice going quiet and cold. You've got 47 minutes left. After that, anything remaining goes to the curb, and I'm not responsible for what the garbage collectors decide to keep. You can't do this, she said, but there was no conviction in it anymore. Just desperation. Watch me. She stood there for another 30 seconds, maybe hoping I'd crack, maybe hoping she'd wake up and this would all be a bad dream. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Vanessa, I need you to come over with your SUV. Like, right now. I'll explain later. While she waited for her sister, she started loading bags into her car, making multiple trips. Huffing and puffing like this was the hardest physical labor she'd ever done. Which it probably was. Ria wasn't exactly known for her work ethic when it came to anything that didn't directly benefit her. Vanessa showed up 20 minutes later, took one look at the scene, and shot me a look that was half disgust, half respect. Like she thought I was being an asshole, but she could appreciate the thoroughness of it. She helped Ria load the rest of the bags and boxes without saying a word to me, which was fine. I had nothing to say to her anyway. At 2:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the deadline, Ria grabbed the last box, the one with her wine glasses, and carried it to Vanessa's SUV. She came back one more time, standing in the doorway like she was going to make one final plea. Don't, I said before she could start. Just don't. We both know how this ends. We can do it the easy way or the hard way, but it ends the same either way. I hope you're happy, she spat, abandoning any pretense of reconciliation. I hope this is everything you wanted. It's not, I admitted. What I wanted was a wife who respected me. But we don't always get what we want, do we? She left without another word, and I watched from the doorway as both cars pulled away, loaded down with garbage bags full of her life. When they disappeared around the corner, I closed the door, locked it, with the new locks, the good ones that her old keys didn't work on, and looked around my house. It was quieter now, emptier, but it was mine. I walked over to where that wedding photo had been lying face down on the console table and picked it up. Looked at the two people in it, smiling like they had it all figured out. Then I opened the garbage can and dropped it in. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Sometimes you have to help it along. The fallout from Thursday's Great Purge was immediate and spectacular. By Friday morning, the group chat that I'd been part of since college, creatively named The Boys because we peaked in our creativity around sophomore year and never recovered, was absolutely losing its mind. I woke up to 127 unread messages, which was more activity than that chat had seen in the last 6 months combined. Usually it was just the occasional meme, someone sharing a funny video, or Marco asking if anyone wanted to grab beers, which nobody ever did, because we were all too tired and too old and too busy pretending to be responsible adults. But today it was chaos. I scrolled up to where the explosion had started, around 11 p.m. the night before. Trey had apparently decided that since his life was already in shambles, he might as well drag everyone else into his misery. Trey, guys, we need to talk about what's happening with the birthday situation. Marco, bro, it's 11 p.m. What situation? Trey, the thing with Ria and the dare. It's gotten way out of hand. He changed the locks, packed all her stuff, and he sent footage to my work email. Jake, my brother, added to the chat after he moved back from Denver. LMAO, he did what? Trey, it's not funny, man. My boss saw it. My wife saw it. He's trying to ruin my life over a stupid game. That's where the chat really took off. People who I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions. Strong opinions. About my marriage, my reaction, my character, my entire existence. Brandon, guy I played intramural soccer with in 2015. Okay, but it was just a dare though. Seems like an overreaction. Marcus, Ria's cousin, which explained his position, he's being psycho about this. It was 5 seconds. My cousin is devastated. David, some dude I honestly didn't even remember being in this chat. Marriage is about forgiveness, bro. You gotta let things go. Trey, exactly. Thank you. Someone with sense. I read through all 127 messages, watching people I'd known for years, people I'd shared beers with, gone to football games with, celebrated life milestones with, all coming together to tell me that I was the problem, that I'd overreacted, that it was just a game, and just 5 seconds, and not that serious, and I needed to be the bigger man and let it go. Not one person, not a single goddamn person, had said, hey, maybe Ria shouldn't have done that in the first place. I sat there in my kitchen, drinking my morning coffee, reading message after message of people telling me that my completely reasonable reaction to public humiliation was somehow worse than the humiliation itself. And something inside me just snapped. Not in an angry way, but in a clarity way. Like suddenly seeing that the people you thought were your friends were really just extras in your life story who'd been reading from the wrong script the whole time. I typed out my response carefully, edited it twice, then hit send. Here's a thought experiment for all of you. Imagine your wife/girlfriend dares another guy to put his hands on her sexually in front of you at your birthday party, in your house, and then tells you you're being dramatic when you're upset about it. Still think it's just a game? Still think I overreacted? Because if the answer is yes, then you're part of the problem, and I don't need people who think that's acceptable behavior in my life. Next time you want to play dare or dare, try daring to pay your own rent and live your own life instead of judging mine. I'm out. I hit send, watched the message appear in the chat, then did something I should have done years ago. I left the group. Just tapped that little leave group button and confirmed it, watching the boys disappear from my messages like it had never existed at all. My phone immediately started buzzing with individual texts. Some people trying to backtrack, saying I'd misunderstood, that they were just trying to help. Others doubling down, telling me I was being too sensitive, that I couldn't take a joke. Trey sent me a paragraph that started with "This is exactly what I'm talking about," and devolved into calling me vindictive and cruel and a dozen other adjectives that he'd apparently been saving up. I blocked him. Then I went through my contacts and blocked everyone who'd had something to say in that chat about how I was overreacting. Marco got blocked. Sorry, cousin, but you chose a side. Brandon got blocked. Marcus definitely got blocked. David, whoever the hell he was, got super blocked. By the time I was done, my contact list was significantly shorter, but my life felt significantly lighter. Jake, bless him, texted me separately. That was the most badass thing I've ever seen you do. Mom's gonna hear about this, though. Aunt Linda is already calling her. Of course Aunt Linda was calling. Aunt Linda, Marcus's mom, Ria's aunt, was the family gossip dispatcher, the communication hub through which all drama flowed, and was distributed to the appropriate parties with editorial commentary included. By noon, my mom would know everything, or at least Linda's version of everything, which would paint me as the villain and Ria as the victim because that's how Linda operated. Sure enough, my mom called at 12:47 p.m. I let it go to voicemail, but I listened to it immediately because I wasn't a complete monster, just a selective one. Honey, it's Mom. Linda called me this morning with some concerning information about you and Ria. She said you kicked Ria out of the house. Over a party game? That doesn't sound like you, sweetie. Can you call me back? I'm worried about you. Love you. The thing about my mom is that she's genuinely good-hearted, but also completely conflict-averse. She would absolutely want me to forgive Ria, go to counseling, work it out, because that's what her generation did. They stuck it out. They made it work. They didn't give up on marriage over small things. The concept that what Ria did wasn't a small thing, that it was actually a massive breach of trust and respect, wouldn't compute for her. I called her back because not calling your mom back is how you end up with her showing up at your door unannounced, and I wasn't ready for that level of intervention yet. Hi, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, are you okay? Linda told me. Mom, I love you. But Linda doesn't know the full story. She knows Ria's version, which I'm guessing makes me sound like a psychopath. She said you changed the locks and kicked Ria out over a party game. Did she mention what happened during that party game? Silence. Well, she said there was a dare that you got upset about. Mom, Ria dared my best friend to put his hands up her skirt, in front of everyone, at my birthday party. And when I was upset about it, she told me I was being dramatic and left. So yeah, I changed the locks. And yeah, I packed her stuff. Because that's not a party game. That's a fundamental lack of respect for our marriage. More silence, longer this time. Then, she did what? You heard me. In front of everyone. Everyone. I could hear my mom processing this, recalculating, adjusting her mental narrative. I don't. Why would she do that? That's the million-dollar question, Mom. But here's what I know. I don't have to stick around to find out the answer. I gave her 7 years. She threw them away for a 5-second dare. That's on her, not me. But honey, marriage is work. It's about forgiveness and, Mom, I know you mean well, but there's a difference between working through normal marriage stuff and accepting behavior that crosses fundamental lines. If Dad had done something like that to you, would you have just forgiven him and moved on? Another long pause. My parents had been married for 38 years, and my dad was the most loyal, dedicated man I'd ever known. He'd never even looked at another woman the wrong way, let alone participated in something like what Ria had done. That's different, she said finally, but her voice was uncertain. It's not different, Mom. It's exactly the same. And I think you know that. She sighed, that deep mom sigh that carried generations of worry and love and disappointment. I just don't want you to do something you'll regret. Divorce is so permanent. So is humiliation. So is betrayal. So is discovering that the person you married doesn't respect you. Those are pretty permanent too. Just promise me you'll think about it. Really think about it. Don't make any hasty decisions. Mom, I packed every single item she owned into labeled bags and boxes with a color-coded spreadsheet. That's the opposite of hasty. That's premeditated organization. She laughed despite herself. That does sound like you. You always were my methodical child. We talked for a few more minutes. She asked about work, about whether I was eating properly, about Baxter, who was fine, thriving actually, seemed much happier without Ria's chaos energy in the house. Before we hung up, she said, I love you, honey. No matter what happens, I love you. Love you too, Mom. After I hung up, I looked at my phone, at the blocked contacts, at the group chat I'd left, at the bridge burning that I'd done in the span of 24 hours. A year ago, hell, a week ago, this would have terrified me. The idea of cutting people off, of choosing myself over keeping the peace, of standing firm instead of bending to maintain relationships. But now? Now it felt like finally taking off shoes that had been too tight for years. Yeah, my feet hurt from where they'd been pinched, but at least I could breathe now. My phone buzzed with a notification, not a text, but a screenshot that Jake had sent me. It was from the boys' chat after I'd left. Trey, see? This is what I mean. He's unstable. Brandon, dude went scorched earth LOL. Marco, he'll be back. He always comes back. I looked at that last message, he always comes back, and felt something settle in my chest. Because Marco was right, historically. Old me always came back. Old me always apologized first, smoothed things over, made himself smaller to make everyone else comfortable. But old me was dead, and new me didn't apologize for having standards. I screenshotted Jake's screenshot and saved it to my evidence folder right next to the Ring camera footage and the spreadsheet of Ria's belongings. Not because I'd need it, but because someday, when I was tempted to doubt myself, when I wondered if I'd overreacted or been too harsh, I wanted to remember this moment. The moment I chose myself. The moment I stopped carrying people who wouldn't carry me. The moment I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who think your boundaries are negotiable. My phone stayed quiet for the rest of the day. No group chat notifications. No texts from Trey. No calls from people trying to convince me to be reasonable. Just silence. And for the first time in years, silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace. Monday morning came with the kind of artificial cheerfulness that only a corporate office can produce. Fluorescent lights humming their monotonous song, the smell of burnt coffee from the break room, and the sound of keyboards clicking in that rhythmic pattern that makes you wonder if this is really what humans evolved for. I'd gone into the office for the first time since the party, partly because I needed to get out of the house and partly because working from home was starting to feel less like a convenience and more like house arrest in the scene of the crime. My coworker Janet noticed immediately that something was different. Janet was one of those people who had a PhD in reading people's energy, probably from the same university that handed out degrees in being overly perceptive about coworkers' personal lives. You look different, she said, leaning against my cubicle wall with her third coffee of the morning. It was 9:47 a.m. Good different. Like you got a haircut or won the lottery or finally told your boss what you really think of his management style. Got rid of some dead weight, I said, not looking up from my computer screen where I was definitely not Googling how to file for divorce in my state. Oh damn, did you finally clean out your garage? I've been telling my husband for 2 years. Got rid of my wife, actually. Janet's coffee mug stopped halfway to her mouth. I'm sorry, what? Well, technically we're still married. But she's out of the house. I've got a lawyer consult scheduled for Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure by this time next year I'll be single and significantly happier. Holy shit. She set her coffee down and pulled up a chair, settling in like I'd just announced the premiere of her favorite show's new season. What happened? Wait, is this about that birthday party? Because Melissa from accounting follows your wife on Instagram and showed me some pictures, and honestly, you looked miserable in all of them. Of course, Melissa from accounting followed Ria on Instagram. Of course, Ria had posted carefully curated photos that made everything look perfect while our marriage was actively imploding in the background. That was Ria's specialty, making everything look good for the algorithm while reality burned down around her. Yeah, the party happened. Some other stuff happened at the party. And now we're getting divorced. That's the condensed version. Janet studied me for a moment, and I could see her doing that thing where she was trying to figure out if I needed sympathy or space or a detailed interrogation. You want to talk about it? Not really. But thanks. You need anything? I'm serious. I've been divorced twice. I'm like a professional at this point. I could teach a class. That actually made me laugh. I'll keep that in mind. Ria had gotten a lawyer. Of course she had. And she'd gotten Patricia Whitmore, who I knew from reputation alone. She was the kind of lawyer who sharks circled for advice. She'd handled several high-profile divorces in our city, always representing the wife, always walking away with a settlement that left the husband eating ramen for the next decade. She was expensive, aggressive, and exactly who you'd hire if you wanted to make your ex-spouse's life a living hell. I opened the email with the same feeling you get right before a roller coaster drops. Dear Mr. Marino, this office has been retained by Mrs. Ria Marino regarding the dissolution of your marriage. We request that you obtain legal representation and have your attorney contact our office to discuss arrangements for a preliminary meeting. In the interim, please be advised that Mrs. Marino is requesting immediate access to the marital residence to retrieve additional personal belongings, along with temporary financial support while separation proceedings are underway. We trust you will handle this matter professionally and in accordance with applicable family law statutes. Regards, Patricia Whitmore, ESQ. I read it 3 times, each time catching new levels of audacity. Additional personal belongings. I'd packed everything she owned, down to the last bobby pin. What additional belongings could she possibly need? The walls? The foundation? My soul, which she'd already done a pretty good job of stomping on. And temporary financial support? She had a job. A good job, actually, working in marketing for some tech startup that paid her more than I made. But apparently that wasn't enough. She wanted my money too, because why not? Why not take everything? I forwarded the email to the lawyer I'd scheduled the consultation with, a guy named Robert Chun who'd been recommended by my brother. His rates were reasonable, his reviews were solid, and according to Jake, he didn't take shit from anyone, which seemed like a valuable quality in a divorce attorney. Then I did something that old me never would have done. I replied to Patricia Whitmore directly. Ms. Whitmore, thank you for your email. My attorney will be in touch shortly to discuss arrangements. However, I wanted to address 2 points directly. All of Mrs. Marino's personal belongings were packed and provided to her last Thursday. If she claims there are additional items, please have her provide a specific list, as I have a complete inventory with photographs of everything that was removed from the residence. Regarding temporary financial support, Mrs. Marino maintains full-time employment with an annual salary comparable to my own. I'm curious about the legal basis for this request, as she appears neither unemployed nor financially dependent. I look forward to handling this matter professionally and in accordance with applicable family law statutes. All of them, not just the ones convenient to Mrs. Marino's position. Regards. My name. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Was it smart to engage directly with her lawyer? Probably not. Would Robert Chin yell at me about it during our consultation? Almost certainly. But it felt good to stop being passive, to stop letting people make demands without pushing back. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me and I listened to it immediately. Mr. Marino, this is Patricia Whitmore. I'd appreciate a call back at your earliest convenience regarding the email you just sent. While I understand emotions are running high, I'd like to remind you that direct communication between parties who are represented by counsel is generally inadvisable. Please have your attorney contact my office. Thank you. Her voice was smooth, professional, with just a hint of condescension that probably worked great in courtrooms, but made me want to throw my phone across the room. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called Robert Chin's office and explained the situation to his paralegal, who assured me that Robert would review everything before our Wednesday meeting and would handle all communication going forward. That evening, I came home to find Ria's car parked on the street in front of my house. Not in the driveway. She'd learned that lesson, but close enough to be obvious. She was sitting in the driver's seat, and when she saw me pull in, she got out. She'd brought backup this time. Vanessa was in the passenger seat, and some guy I didn't recognize was in the back. Probably one of her friends, or maybe her new lawyer had sent a witness. Smart move, actually. I had to give her credit for learning. "We need to talk," Ria called out as I got out of my car. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, no makeup. I'm just a regular person going through a hard time. Look, that was probably strategic as hell. "We have lawyers for that now," I said, grabbing my briefcase from the back seat. "Have Patricia call Robert. They can schedule something. Don't be like this. Can we please just talk? Like adults? Without all the lawyers and the drama?" I stopped walking and turned to face her. "You want to talk like adults? Okay, here's some adult talk. You violated our marriage in front of everyone I care about. You showed zero remorse. You left and expected me to just get over it. And now you're trying to take money from me through your scary lawyer while pretending to be the victim. That about cover it." The guy in the back seat got out, tall, muscular, probably supposed to be intimidating. "Hey man, there's no need to be aggressive." "Who the hell are you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I'm Brian, Ria's friend. I'm just here to make sure this stays civil." "Brian, my guy, I appreciate your dedication to friendship or whatever this is, but this is a private property dispute between married people. You're technically trespassing. So unless you want to be featured in my next Ring Camera compilation, I'd suggest you get back in the car." Brian looked at Ria, who nodded, and he retreated back to the vehicle like a trained guard dog. Vanessa stayed in the passenger seat, watching through the windshield with her phone out, probably recording in case I did something she could use against me later. "I just want to come to an agreement," Ria said, and her voice had that pleading quality again. "Without all this fighting, can't we just split things fairly and move on?" "Define fairly," I said, "because from where I'm standing, fair would be you taking your stuff, which you already did, and us going our separate ways. But apparently fair to you means getting a predatory lawyer and asking for my money when you make just as much as I do." "The house is half mine," she said, and there it was. The real reason she was here. Not to reconcile, not to apologize, but to stake her claim to the asset she'd never been legally entitled to in the first place. "The house has your name nowhere on it," I corrected. "The house was purchased with my inheritance money. The house is mine. Your lawyer knows this, which is probably why she's going for the financial support angle instead." "That's not fair. I lived here too. I contributed." "You contributed what exactly?" "Chaos. Stress. A public humiliation that's probably going to be the punchline of every family gathering for the next decade." She flinched like I'd slapped her, and part of me, a very small part that still remembered loving her, felt bad. But the larger part, the part that was tired of being the one who bent and apologized and made himself smaller, stayed firm. "Have your lawyer call mine," I said again. "Wednesday. That's 3 days away. We can both survive 3 days without having this conversation on my lawn." I walked past her to my front door, unlocked it with my new keys, and went inside without looking back. Wednesday came and went in a blur of legal consultations and strategic planning that made me feel less like a person and more like a chess piece in a game I never wanted to play. Robert Chin turned out to be exactly what I needed. Methodical, unimpressed by theatrics, and possessed of a dry sense of humor that made discussing asset division almost bearable. He'd reviewed everything. The ring footage, the email chain with Trey, the inventory spreadsheet of Ria's belongings that he'd called impressively petty and legally useful. "The house is yours, no question," he'd said, tapping his pen against the property deed. "Her lawyer can argue all she wants, but your name's on it, bought with your inheritance, and she's got no legal claim. The financial support request is laughable given her salary. We'll counterfile, establish fault grounds based on the footage if she wants to play hardball, and honestly, I think she'll settle fast once she realizes this isn't going to be the payday she was hoping for." But while Robert was handling Ria's legal assault, Trey was launching his own desperate campaign via email. My inbox had become a digital crime scene of his unraveling life. The messages started arriving Thursday morning. "Please delete it. I'm begging you. My wife saw everything. She's filing for separation. HR wants a meeting. This is affecting my job. You've made your point. Please just make this stop." Each email was more frantic than the last, typos multiplying like bacteria, autocorrect failing to save him from his panic. By Friday afternoon, I'd received 11 messages, each one a masterclass in consequences meeting actions. The final email arrived Saturday night. My wife left. Took the kids to her mother's. My boss suggested I take personal leave while they review the situation. Are you happy now? You destroyed my life over 5 seconds. I hope it was worth it. I read that last line 3 times. I hope it was worth it. Like I was the one who'd made the choice that started this cascade. Like I'd forced his hand up my wife's skirt. Like I'd been the architect of this disaster instead of just the guy who'd refused to pretend it didn't happen. I typed one response. You should have thought about consequences before playing hands-on Jenga with another man's wife. Actions have reactions. Welcome to adulthood. 3 months later, the divorce papers arrived via certified mail on a Tuesday afternoon that felt like any other Tuesday until it suddenly became the best Tuesday of my year. I signed them at my kitchen table with a pen I'd bought specifically for this occasion. A nice one, the kind that feels substantial in your hand, because if you're going to sign away 7 years of your life, you might as well do it with style. Ria got nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. She got her freedom and a hard lesson about consequences, which Robert Chin had argued was more than generous given the circumstances. The house stayed mine, the savings account stayed mine, and even Baxter stayed mine, though that last one hadn't been contested because Ria had never liked him anyway. Trey moved to Arizona. Heard it through the grapevine. The few people I still talked to who'd remained neutral. His wife divorced him, he lost his job, and apparently Phoenix seemed like a good place to start over. I didn't feel bad about it. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and he'd won the grand prize. My next birthday came around, and I celebrated it exactly how I wanted. Just me, Baxter, and a slice of chocolate cake from the bakery downtown. No guests, no games, no drama. Just quiet contentment and a dog who thought I was the greatest person alive simply because I fed him and threw tennis balls. I put a single candle in the cake, not because I was turning one, but because I only needed one wish, and honestly, I didn't even need that. My wish had already come true the moment those divorce papers were signed. When I blew out the candle, Baxter barked, tail wagging like we'd just accomplished something monumental. And maybe we had. Freedom tastes better than any cake.